The Three Wishes by Philip Craddock. Once upon a time, there lived a poor woodman named Claus. He lived near a great forest with his wife, Sasha. One day, Claus was just about to chop down a tall oak tree when he heard a small voice.
Wait! Please don't chop down this tree. It's my home,
The voice said.
Who's there?
Claus replied, looking around for the speaker. Just then, a dazzlingly bright fairy flew down from a notch in the tree. She was so small that she could fit in the palm of his hand. Claus's eyes grew wide with surprise.
What are you?
He asked.
I'm a forest fairy,
The fairy replied.
and I was born here. I draw my powers from this tree. We're connected. If you hurt the tree, I'll get hurt too. So please, spare my tree.
Claus nodded his head.
Okay, don't worry. I'll spare your tree.
He agreed. The fairy happily flew above his head in circles, painting yellow rings in the sky with fairy dust.
Oh, thank you. In return, I'll grant you 3 wishes.
She gleefully replied. Claus smiled and continued working. He chopped down 4 trees that day, but spared the fairy's oak. Claus didn't believe a creature as small as the fairy could really grant wishes, but he wasn't about to be so cruel as to destroy her home. At the end of the day, Claus was tired and hungry. He returned home and sat down at the kitchen table.
Good evening, husband.
Sasha said.
Have you had a good day?
Claus shrugged his shoulders.
It wasn't bad.
He replied. Sasha set a steaming hot bowl of soup in front of him. It was thick, green, and smelled terrible.
What's this?
Claus asked, poking the soup with his spoon. It was so thick that he thought he might need a knife to slice it.
Vegetable soup. Go on, eat up.
Sasha replied.
Vegetable soup?
Claus groaned.
I wish I could have roast chicken instead.
He had not believed that the fairy could truly grant wishes. However, as soon as he said those words, the soup transformed into a roast chicken.
Huh, would you look at that?
Claus replied, wide-eyed in surprise.
I didn't think she could really do it.
Sasha couldn't believe what had just happened.
Who could have done this?
She asked.
I met a fairy. She granted me 3 wishes.
Claus explained.
You wasted a wish on chicken instead of gold?
Sasha moaned.
I wish that chicken was growing out of your head!
The wish was granted, and the chicken sprouted from the top of Claus's head. It was alive! It squawked loudly and flapped its wings. The chicken was even more confused than Claus.
Ah! Get it off!
Claus cried.
How?
Sasha asked. She hadn't realized that her wish would be granted too, and could not see any way to detach the chicken from his head.
I wish you hadn't done that!
Claus said. As soon as he spoke, the 3rd and final wish was granted. Once again, Claus had a plate of roast chicken in front of him.
Want to share it with me?
He offered. Sasha sighed and helped herself to a chicken leg. They had wasted their wishes, but it was very tasty. The fairy watched the couple through the window and sighed. She'd given them a golden opportunity to improve their lives, but they had wasted all 3 wishes.
Treasure every opportunity and consider carefully before making decisions,
she thought in disappointment. And with that, the fairy was gone.
Puss in Boots, written by Curtis Norris. Once there was a handsome young man called Francis. His family was poor, and one day his father said, "It's time for you to seek your fortune. All I can give you is this cat." So Francis left with the cat. Suddenly, the cat spoke. "I can help you make your fortune, but I need a pair of boots, a black hat, and a bag." Francis was kind, and he gave the cat what he wanted. The cat was delighted with his boots. "From now on, call me Puss in Boots." Then he ran off, but quickly returned with a fat rabbit in his bag. "I'll give this to the king as a gift from you, the Duke of Bluewater." Each day, Puss took gifts to the king, saying they were from his master. The king was always very grateful. One day, as Francis and Puss were walking by a river, the cat saw the king and his daughter approaching in a carriage. "Quick, master, remove your clothes and jump in." Francis did, and as the carriage neared, Puss called through the window. "Sire, help! My master was swimming in the lake and some robbers took his clothes." The king remembered the gifts and gave Francis a fine new outfit. Francis approached the carriage looking very handsome. Puss said, "My master owns that castle on the hill." The princess fell in love with Francis and said, "Join us. We will take you to your castle." When they had gone, Puss ran to the castle. It belonged to a greedy ogre. Puss called, "Hey, ogre, I hear you can do magic, but I bet you cannot turn into a mouse."
That is easy. Look.
The ogre became a mouse. Puss quickly grabbed the mouse and put it in his bag. So Francis lived in the castle and married the princess. They lived happily ever after with that clever Puss in Boots.
The 3 Little Pigs. In a faraway land lived 3 little pigs named Josh, Matt, and Jim. Growing up, each pig wanted to build a beautiful, strong house to protect himself from the big, bad wolf. Josh, the eldest pig, went first. As he trotted along the road, he met a man carrying a bundle of straw. So he said very politely,
"If you please, sir, could you give me that straw so I can build a house?"
And the man, seeing what good manners the little pig had, gave him the straw. And the little pig set to work and built a beautiful house. Then Matt, the next piggy, went on and met a man carrying a bundle of wood sticks. Being very polite, Matt asked,
"If you could please, sir, could you give me those wood sticks so I can build a house?"
And the man, seeing what good manners the little pig had, gave him the wood sticks. And the little pig set to work and built himself a beautiful house. Now the 3rd little piggy, Jim, met a man carrying a load of bricks, and being very polite, he said,
"If you could please, sir, could you give me those bricks so I can build a house?"
and the man, seeing that he had been well brought up, gave him the bricks. And the little pig set to work and built himself a beautiful house. Jim worked hard and long and built his house with a fireplace and a chimney. Jim thought,
"The wolf will never get into my house."
Right after the three pigs finished building their houses, along came a wolf. He knocked on the door of Josh's house and said,
"Little pig, little pig, let me come in."
To which Josh answered,
No, no, by the hair of my chinny chin chin.
The wolf then answered,
"Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in."
So he huffed, and he puffed, and he blew the house down. The straw house didn't stand a chance. It was ripped from the ground, leaving only Josh standing there. Josh was so scared that he ran as fast as he could to Matt's house. Chasing after Josh, the wolf came to Matt's house. He called out,
Little pig, let me come in."
"No, no, by the hair of my chinny chin chin."
the pigs shouted.
"Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in,"
said the wolf.
"Ha, I would like to see you try,"
Matt said confidently. So the wolf huffed and puffed, and huffed and puffed. And at last he blew the house down, leaving only two little pigs. The two terrified little pigs ran as fast as they could to Jim's house.
Jim, open the door quickly. Let me in, let me in.
Scared Matt shouted.
All right, what's wrong?
Said Jim from inside the house. All of a sudden, the three little pigs in the house made of bricks were interrupted by the big bad wolf.
Little pig, let me come in,"
said the big bad wolf.
No, big bad wolf. I know who you are, and I will never let you in,
said Jim.
"Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in like your friends,"
said the wolf.
You can huff, then you can puff, but you will never blow my house in,
Jim said confidently. Then the wolf huffed and puffed, and huffed and puffed, and huffed and puffed, but there was not a shudder nor even a shake. Once again, the wolf huffed and puffed, and huffed and puffed, and huffed and puffed, and blew with all his might. Nothing happened. At last, he was so out of breath that he couldn't huff and he couldn't puff anymore. So he stopped to rest and thought a bit. Then the wolf looked around for a way to get into the brick house, and he noticed the chimney on the roof.
"I will get in the house through the chimney,"
the wolf thought. Realizing that the wolf would climb to the roof and slide down the chimney and into the house, the 3 little pigs were very scared. But then Jim came up with an idea. He lit a fire in the fireplace and put on a big pot full of water. The wolf climbed to the roof and slid down the chimney. Thump! The wolf slid right into the big pot full of boiling water that was in the burning fireplace.
Oh no! Fire! Help me!
He yelped. The big bad wolf burned his bottom very badly and ran howling into the forest.
You little pigs! I'll be back!
The wolf yelled. And the 3 little pigs lived together in the brick house happily ever after.
The Nightingale. Once upon a time, in a forest, lived a nightingale. It sang so beautifully that if anyone heard it singing, they would stop working to enjoy its sweet songs. The nightingale was not a very pretty bird. In fact, it was mostly all brown, but that didn't matter. One day, the emperor heard of this bird. He really wanted to have it brought to sing for him and his court at his next party. He ordered his servants to bring the bird immediately.
Bring me this bird, the nightingale. I want it in my palace to sing for me.
The emperor said. The servants went to the forest, and after a long search, they found the nightingale. The head servant told the bird the emperor's request.
Please, sweet nightingale, come with us to the emperor. He wants to hear your beautiful song,
he said. The nightingale accepted the invitation. It said, "Yes, I will come." The bird went with the servants to the palace. In the palace court, the emperor had a golden stick prepared for the bird to sit on. The nightingale sang so sweetly that the emperor had tears in his eyes. The nightingale, upon seeing this, sang even more sweetly. The emperor wanted the bird to come and live with him.
Please, sweet nightingale, will you stay here and live with me in...
Got tired of the same song that the golden nightingale sang. It was a mechanical bird, so it could only sing one tune. After
How Elephants Lost Their Wings, written by Cliff Brown. A long time ago, the gods had a conference to decide which animals could have wings. All the animals wanted wings so they could fly through the sky. Elephants were selected to have wings because they always helped other animals. The elephants were very happy. They thanked the gods and went home to show their wings to other animals. But the elephants soon learned that having wings caused problems. Their wings got caught in nearly everything they passed. The elephants yelled as they got caught in the trees. All this yelling upset other creatures that used to like the elephants. The elephants now had trouble finding food. Every time they tried to move through the forest, their wings got caught in the branches. The elephants were hungry and sad. Even the baby elephants had a hard time finding food. The elephants decided that they had enough of flying. They said to each other,
"Let's go back to the gods and ask them to take our wings back."
The elephants returned to the gods and said, "Please take our wings back. They cause us too many problems." The gods agreed. Now the elephants were happy, and the other animals wanted to be friends with them again. The elephants returned to their home. They lived peacefully ever after, and never again wished they could fly. The Prince with Donkey Ears. Once there was a king and queen that could not have children. They decided to ask the woodland fairies for help.
Yes, we will grant your wish to have a son and give the child a blessing.
The beautiful fairy said,
Your son will be handsome.
The intelligent fairy said,
Your son will be very smart.
Then the wise fairy, to everyone's astonishment, said,
Your son will have the ears of a donkey.
And then the three fairies disappeared before anyone could ask any questions about the special wish. After 9 months, the king and queen were overjoyed with their newborn prince. As the prince grew, he was smart and handsome. But one day, 2 donkey ears started to grow on the prince's head. It would be best if everyone never saw the prince's donkey ears. So the king ordered to make a special hat in order that the prince could always wear to cover the donkey ears. People didn't know about the donkey ears, so they praised the prince all the time. Soon after, the prince started to become too proud of himself and found fault with everyone else.
You're dumb,
the prince said to one servant.
Why are you so ugly?
The prince teased another one. One day, the king decided that the prince needed a haircut. When the royal barber took the special hat off, he saw the donkey ears and was very surprised.
Oh my gosh!
The king told the barber,
If you tell anyone the prince has donkey ears, you'll spend your life in prison.
The barber went home and tried to forget what he had seen, but he could not. So he decided to go far away from the village and dug a hole. Then he yelled into the hole.
The prince has donkey ears! The prince has donkey ears!
Unfortunately, while he was yelling, a shepherd boy passed and heard everything. Soon, everyone in the village heard about the prince's donkey ears. When the prince rode through the village, he could hear people whispering about him. People seemed to be afraid of the prince. No one wanted to praise or stay close to him. The prince became very sad and depressed. He wailed,
I look like a monster to everyone now.
So the prince decided to take off his hat. There was no use hiding his ears. Now everyone knew the prince's secret. The prince said to the villagers,
I am very sorry for the way I treated you. It was wrong of me to make fun of you. I will never do it again.
Just then, The wise fairy appeared and said to the prince,
I gave you the donkey ears to teach you about compassion. And now that you have learned your lesson, you don't need the donkey ears anymore.
The fairy waved her wand, and the donkey ears disappeared. The prince was so delighted. He now understood that being so vain and selfish always had to pay the high price. From that day on, the prince never made fun of anyone. He became a kind and compassionate ruler of the kingdom.
The Magic Cooking Pot. Written by Katie Stanley. Once there was a kind orphan girl named Ellie. Every day, Ellie went into the forest to collect vegetables and honey and took them home to eat. One day, on her way home, Ellie met an old lady holding a cooking pot. Ellie asked the lady, "Would you like to have some honey?" The old lady said, "It's so kind of you to share your honey with me, so I would be happy to cook some porridge for you." Surprised, the girl asked, "How can you cook porridge without any grain?" The old lady smiled and said, "I will cook porridge with this magic cooking pot." The old lady set the cooking pot on the ground and stepped back. Next, the old lady said, "Cook, magic pot, cook!" Suddenly, the cooking pot was full of porridge. Ellie was very surprised. "Stop, magic pot, stop!" said the old lady. Immediately, the magic pot stopped cooking. The lady put some porridge into a bowl and gave it to Ellie. Ellie ate the porridge and yelled, "Wow! This porridge is very good!" Then the old lady gave the magic cooking pot to Ellie and said, "Now this cooking pot is yours. Please use it wisely." Ellie thanked the lady and brought the pot home. One day, as Ellie used the magic pot to cook some porridge, a boy next door watched her from the outside. When Ellie went to sleep, the boy stole the magic cooking pot. At home, he said, "Cook, magic pot, cook!" And the pot filled with porridge. But the boy forgot how to stop the pot. It cooked more and more porridge. The boy was afraid, so he ran to ask for Ellie's help. The magic cooking pot, filled with porridge, followed him. Seeing that, Ellie yelled, "Stop, magic pot! Stop!" The pot stopped right away. The boy said to Ellie, "I'm sorry for taking the pot away. I just wanted to eat something." Ellie smiled and forgave him. From then on, Ellie invited all the villagers to come and eat the porridge from the magic cooking pot. Everyone was thankful that they would not be hungry anymore.
The Emperor's New Clothes. Written by Katie Stanley. Once upon a time, there was an emperor who loved beautiful clothes. He was looking for the best tailor to make clothes for him. Two brothers heard.
The Hard-Working Moon. Written by Mary Blake. Once upon a time, there were 12 different moons, one for every month. Each moon took its turn lighting the night and creating good weather for farmers. One day, God decided to have a festival day for the children of the world. Children should have their own festival day, he said. Since children go to school during the day, the festival will be held at night. I will choose the brightest moon to shine on this very special night. But every moon shone brightly in the night. Which moon should God choose? Throughout this year, I will secretly watch the moons, he said. I will watch each moon on the 15th day of its own month to see which moon works hardest. God decided to challenge the moons. In the middle of the night, on the 15th day of each month, God covered the moon with dark clouds. Just as he suspected, most of them, being hidden from view, stopped working to take a short nap. Only the August moon kept working even behind the clouds. He worked even harder than usual so that his light shone through the clouds, creating a bright glow to light the earth. Therefore, God decided to choose the August moon for the important occasion. Children's Festival is held each year in the middle of autumn, so it is called Mid-Autumn Festival.
The Gingerbread Man, written by Allie Bank. Once upon a time, there was a little old lady who loved to make gingerbread cookies. One day, she decided to make a gingerbread man. She cut out his head, arms, and legs. She made 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. She put a suit on him. She put him in the oven to bake. She watched and waited. She loved her gingerbread man. When he was fully baked, she put him on the windowsill to cool. Suddenly, he jumped off the pan and started to run down the lane. The little old lady shouted, "Come back, gingerbread man!" But the gingerbread man kept running as fast as he could. He ran and ran until he came to a sleeping pig. The pig woke up and smelled the gingerbread man. The pig started to run after the gingerbread man. Soon he came to a sleeping dog. The dog woke up and smelled the gingerbread man. The gingerbread man ran as fast as he could. He came to a riverbank. He could not cross to the other side. He did not know what to do. He saw 2 bees flying through the woods. "Can you help me cross the river?" asked the gingerbread man. He could see the little old woman, the pig, and the dog. They were coming closer. "Get a blade of grass," said the bees. "We will carry the sides, and you can hang on in the middle." The 2 bees carried the gingerbread man safely across the river. "Thank you! I will never forget you," said the gingerbread man.
The Black Goat and the White Goat, written by Katie Stanley. Once in a forest, there lived 2 goats, a black goat and a white goat. They were good friends. One day, as the white goat was eating grass, a wolf came by. The wolf said, "How dare you eat grass on my land?" The white goat was terrified. He said, "I'm sorry. I will go and eat somewhere else." Suddenly, the wolf grabbed the white goat's leg and said, What are those things under your feet? The goat answered in fear, Those are my hooves. The wolf continued, Now, what are those things on your head? The white goat replied in fear, Those are my horns, but they haven't grown long yet. The wolf cunningly smiled and asked, Now, the last question. How is your heart now, little goat? The white goat shook with fear and said, My heart is beating very fast because I am afraid. Please let me go. The wolf laughed and came close to the trembling goat. He would never let the white goat go. Just then, the black goat arrived and saw what was happening. The black goat shouted, White goat, come over here! The wolf was startled and turned around to find out who was yelling. Immediately, the two goats quickly ran away. The wolf got very angry. The next day, the wolf saw the black goat drinking from the river and wanted to eat him. The wolf asked, Black goat, how dare you drink from my river? What are those things on your head? How is your heart now? The black goat confidently shouted, My strong heart is urging my diamond hordes to butt you, evil wolf. The wolf was so scared that he ran deep into the forest and never came back. It was the goat's friendship and courage that kept the wolf from ever bothering them again. The Magic Watermelon, written by Ethan Smith. Once upon a time, an orphan boy named Lee lived in a farming village. While the village farmers went to work every day, Lee slept. One time, a farmer asked Lee, Could you please help me harvest the potatoes? When we finish, we can eat lunch together. But Lee refused to help and went to sleep. Another time, another farmer asked Lee, Could you please help me load sugarcane onto my cart? When we finish, I'll give you some sugarcane juice. But Lee refused to help and went to sleep. One day, Lee woke from sleeping and felt hungry. Just then, an old man from a farm brought a watermelon into Lee's house. The old man said, The watermelon is magic. If you ask, it will give you food. Lee said to the watermelon, Please give me fried rice. A bowl of fried rice suddenly appeared on the table. After he ate, Lee talked to the old man. I want watermelon like that. It's much easier to ask the watermelon for food than it is to work. The old man replied to Lee, If you want a magic watermelon, you can grow one of your own. The old man gave Lee some seeds. Lee said, Thank you. I promise to take good care of them. Lee planted the seeds and watered them every day, just as he had promised. Soon, the plants were large and healthy. As soon as Lee saw a watermelon growing on one of the vines, he asked it to give him food. The watermelon gave Lee a small piece of bread. Lee became angry at the watermelon and said, Is that all you have for me? The watermelon said, You only have a small piece of bread because you are so lazy. This morning, you got up too late and did not water me. Lee hurried to give the watermelon plant more water and then said, Now give me something good to eat. But what he got was the same small piece of bread. Lee started to cry. At that moment, The old man that gave Lee the watermelon seeds walked over to Lee and said,
"If you work harder, you will get what you want. The watermelon will not reward you for being lazy."
From then on, Lee promised not to be lazy. He worked hard on the farm and always remembered to take good care of the magic watermelon. The Leopard's Drum, written by Wendy Lee. Once, a leopard had a drum. He played it every day, which annoyed God and the other animals. God wanted to stop the leopard from playing the drum, so he met with the other animals to find a way. Each animal had his own idea. A python tried first. He went to the leopard and asked,
"Leopard, can I borrow the drum for my family reunion?"
But the leopard refused and chased the python away. Next, it was the elephant's turn. The elephant went to the leopard and asked,
"Leopard, can I borrow your drum for my birthday party?"
But the leopard refused and chased the elephant away. Finally, a tortoise tried. The tortoise went to the leopard and said,
"Your drum is too small. God has a much bigger one."
The leopard replied with confidence,
"No way! My drum is the biggest one in the forest."
The tortoise continued,
"God's drum must be bigger because he can sit in it."
Angrily, the leopard sat inside his drum. He wanted to prove that his drum was much bigger. Right away, the tortoise put a drum lid that she had prepared on the drum. Then she rolled the drum to God. When the tortoise returned with the drum, everyone was very surprised. When the tortoise took the lid off, the leopard dizzily got out. He decided that the drum was not worth the trouble. So he went away without his drum. God took the drum home and played it every time a storm came. Thanks to the tortoise's cleverness, every time it was about to storm, all the animals now had time to find a shelter and hide from the rain.
The Little Match Girl. It was New Year's Eve. The air was frigid and heavy snow was falling. The Little Match Girl was walking slowly down the street. She had no shoes or coat or mittens. Her dress was ragged and full of holes. Even though nearly everyone was in for the night, she hoped to sell at least a few matches. All day long, she searched for customers, but everyone was too busy to stop. She had no money to buy food and nothing to drink. As the Little Match Girl passed by the windows, she could see candles lit and people celebrating. Families were sitting down for their evening meal. She smelled goose cooking and thought about how good it would taste. She also thought about how nice it would feel to sit in front of the warm fireplace. Maybe I should light just one match, the Little Match Girl thought. But then she decided not to, as it would be one less match to sell. No, she thought again. I need to light a match or I will freeze. She pulled out one match and lit it. The light was beautiful and warm. As she enjoyed the warmth, the little match girl almost felt like she was inside the house, sitting in front of the warm stove where the goose was being cooked. But soon, the match burnt out, and the little match girl realized she was out in the cold again with nothing to eat. So she lit another match. As the match lit up the wall, the little match girl could almost see into the home. The table was filled with all kinds of wonderful foods. There were meat and fancy desserts and steaming plates of buttered vegetables. Everything looked so delicious. But soon, the match burnt out and her illusion vanished. The little match girl lit one more match. Now, she was sitting under a beautiful Christmas tree with glowing lights. But soon, the match went out, and she was back on the frozen street. So she lit another match. This time, her grandmother appeared. Even though her grandmother was no longer alive in this world, she looked so happy and loving. "Please, take me with you, Grandma," the little match girl begged. "I don't want you to vanish, and the streets are so cold." The little match girl lit the entire bundle of matches. And her grandmother appeared even brighter and more alive. Her grandmother smiled. She took the little match girl gently into her arms. They flew up into the sky to be with God, where there is no hunger or pain or cold. In the morning, as people came out onto the streets, they found the little match girl. Her body was frozen and covered with snow. But there was a smile on her face. None of the people that passed by on that day knew how happy the little match girl felt when her beautiful grandmother came to take her to live in heaven on New Year's Eve.
Pinocchio. Once there was a man named Geppetto. He used to make wooden puppets to perform at carnivals. He lived all alone, so he considered all the puppets his friends. One day, Geppetto was sick. One of his puppets worried and spoke to him.
"Why are you so sad?"
The puppet asked. Geppetto was so frightened that he hit the puppet's elbow against the corner of the table.
Ouch! That was my funny bone.
The puppet said and began laughing. While Geppetto was still confused, a tiny fairy suddenly appeared and said to the puppet,
I'm making you a special gift to the old good man. You must always obey him, go to school, and stay out of trouble.
The boy puppet nodded as the fairy waved her wand.
One last thing, said the fairy. You must always tell the truth.
I will.
The puppet promised, happy to be almost like a real boy. In a puff of smoke, the fairy was gone. Geppetto was delighted. He now had someone to keep him company.
I am going to call you Pinocchio,
he said to the puppet. Both of them laughed and danced around the room. They were so happy to have each other. Pinocchio would be almost like a son to Geppetto. Geppetto sent Pinocchio to school. Pinocchio was very obedient to the old man. One day, Geppetto gave Pinocchio some money and a list of things to buy at the store. Whistling happily, the puppet left home. Soon, he arrived at a marketplace. There, leaning against a wall, was a sly fox and a clever cat.
This one looks like a sucker,
said the fox when he spotted the puppet. As Pinocchio passed by, the fox stuck out his foot and tripped him. As Pinocchio fell down, the list and the money dropped out of his pocket.
Sorry about that, my friend,
the fox said.
Here is your list,
said the cat. Then the fox and the cat ran off with his money. Now Pinocchio did not know what to do. He did not have any money, and his father needed the things. When he got to the store, he told the shopkeeper about it. I'll write a note. Your papa can pay later, the kind shopkeeper said. When Pinocchio arrived home, Geppetto asked,
Did everything go all right?
Yes, Papa,
Pinocchio replied. Instantly, his nose grew longer. His papa asked,
Did you give the shopkeeper the money?
Yes, Papa.
Pinocchio lied. Again, his nose grew longer. Pinocchio was frightened and started to cry. Suddenly, the fairy appeared and said to Pinocchio,
When you lie, your nose will grow longer, and you'll always be a puppet.
She continued,
But if you are always honest, you will become a real boy.
Oh, Papa, I want to be a real boy,
shouted Pinocchio. So Pinocchio told his father what happened to him at the store. Right after that, his nose became short again. From that day on, Pinocchio always told the truth because he and Geppetto couldn't wait for him to become a real good boy.
Jordina and Joringel. Long ago, a cruel witch lived in a big castle deep in the woods. She lived alone and did not want any visitors. To protect her castle, the witch drew a magic circle around it. If a girl walked through the forest and stepped into the circle, the witch used her magic to turn her into a bird. Then the witch would put the bird into a cage. She had been doing this for a very long time. Over the years, she had turned thousands of girls into birds, and she kept them all in cages inside her castle. In a village near to the castle lived a very pretty girl named Jordina and a shepherd boy named Joringel, who loved Jordina and was planning to marry her. One day, Joringel said to Jordina,
"Would you like to go for a walk in the woods?"
Jordina said, "Yes." They started down the path that led into the woods. The sun was shining and the trees swayed gently in the breeze. Before long, they were deep in the woods. When they came near to the castle, they accidentally entered the witch's magic circle. Immediately, Jordina was changed into a bird. Then the cruel witch grabbed her and put her in a cage. Jordina was so frightened. She wanted to scream for help, but now she could only chirp like a bird. Joringel felt helpless. He begged the witch,
"Please, turn Jordina back into a girl."
But she refused. "Forget about Jordina and go away!" the cruel witch yelled. Joringel sadly walked back to the village to care for his sheep. On the way, he met a strange woman. He told her what happened.
"If you want to save Jordina, you must find a bright red flower with a pearl in the middle. It can destroy the witch's magic. Anything you touch with the flower will be changed back to normal,"
the strange woman said. Joringel immediately went everywhere looking for the special flower. He looked in the meadow, by the side of the brook, and all over the forest. He traveled near and far to find this magic flower. After 9 days, Joringel found the special flower far away from the village. He was very excited. Joringel hurried back to get to the cruel witch's castle. Because he was so far away, he had to walk day and night to get there. Finally, he came to the castle in the forest. He used the bright red flower with the pearl in the center to enter the witch's magic circle. Every time he touched something with the flower, the witch's magic was destroyed. When the witch found out what was happening, she tried to stop Joringel, but the special flower kept him safe. She was so angry that she grabbed the cage with Jordina and started running. Joringel ran after her. When he caught up with the witch, he used the flower to turn Jordina back into a girl. When he touched the witch with the bright red flower, it took away all her magic powers. Then, Joringel used the flower to turn all the birds in the castle back into girls. After this, Jordina and Joringel went back home. They told everyone about the cruel witch and how the special flower stopped her magic. Everyone was glad. Jordina and Joringel got married at last and lived happily ever after. Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who wore a red riding cloak with a hood. One day, her mother called to her. "Come, Little Red Riding Hood. Here are some cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She is sick and weak. Remember, don't talk to strangers along the way."
"Don't worry, Mommy. I'll be careful,"
she said. Her grandmother lived in the wood, and as Little Red Riding Hood was walking along,
la 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 la, la 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 la,
a wolf met her.
Good day, Little Red Riding Hood. Where are you going today?
The wolf asked in a friendly voice.
"I am going to my grandmother's house. She is sick and weak, and I have some cakes and wine for her,"
she answered.
How nice. Where does your grandmother live, my dear?
Asked the wolf.
"Her house is in the wood under the 3 large oak trees. You can see the trees from here,"
Little Red Riding Hood said. The wolf thought,
What a tender young creature. What a nice plump bite for me. I must be careful so as to catch her.
He said,
Look at the pretty flowers all about. Why don't you pick some for your grandmother and enjoy the sweetly singing birds as you walk along?
Little Red Riding Hood looked around and thought,
"It is early in the day. I still have lots of time."
So she ran off the path into the wood to look for flowers. The wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door.
"Who's there?"
asked the grandmother.
"Little Red Riding Hood,"
replied the wolf.
"I am bringing a cake for you. Open the door."
"Open the door yourself," called out the grandmother. "I am too weak to get up." The wolf came in, tied up the grandmother with a rope, and put her in the cupboard. Then he put on her night clothes and her cap on his head. He got into the bed and pulled up the covers. Little Red Riding Hood had picked a large bunch of flowers for her grandmother and finally arrived at the house. She called out,
"Good morning!"
but no one answered. So she opened the door and went to the bed. Her grandmother was lying there with her cap on and looking very strange.
"Why, grandmother, what big ears you have!"
she exclaimed.
"The better to hear you with, my dear,"
the wolf replied.
"But grandmother, what big eyes you have!"
she said.
"The better to see you with, my dear,"
the wolf replied.
"But grandmother, what big teeth you have!"
she said.
"The better to eat you with,"
said the wolf. The wolf bounded out of the bed to catch Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood ran across the room and cried out loudly,
"Help, wolf!"
A huntsman who was chopping logs nearby heard her cry out and ran to the house as fast as he could. He chased the wolf out of the house and to the wood. Then he helped Grandmother out of the cupboard. The grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine that Little Red Riding Hood had brought, and she became strong and well once more. Little Red Riding Hood learned her lesson and promised never to speak to a stranger ever again.
The Shoemaker and the Elves. Once there lived a poor but kind shoemaker with his wife. They were going through a hard time, and often they had to go to bed hungry. This continued until finally, one day, there were only enough leather pieces to make one more pair of shoes. In the evening, the shoemaker cut out the leather for the shoes. He left them on the table in his shop to finish in the morning.
"There now, I will finish them in the morning," he said.
He lay down, asked God for help, and fell asleep. In the morning, he went to his shop to work. But what did he see? The pair of shoes was lying finished on the table. He took them in his hands to look at them more closely. He saw that they were very neatly made.
"Such finely made shoes! I wonder who made them!"
he exclaimed. Soon after, a buyer came in, and as the shoes were very fine, he paid a good price for them. "Your shoes are very fine, sir. I will tell my friends what a fine shoemaker you are," said the man. The shoemaker was now able to buy leather for 2 pairs of shoes. That evening, he cut out the leather for the shoes and went to bed. The next morning, the shoes were again already finished on the table. They were also sold for a good price, enough money to buy leather for 4 pairs of shoes. The next morning, he found the 4 pairs finished. Indeed, any leather that he cut out in the evening was finished in the morning.
"Every night they finish all my shoes. Such beautiful shoes,"
the shoemaker said. This continued for a while, and soon he was no longer poor. He had become quite rich. One evening before Christmas, he said to his wife,
"Let's stay up tonight to see who is lending us a helping hand."
The wife liked the idea. In the evening, they hid themselves in the corner of the room, behind some clothes that were hanging there, and watched. At midnight, 2 little elves came into the room. They began to stitch, sew, and hammer skillfully and quickly with their little fingers.
Come on! Let's get this done! We'll make the best shoes for the good, kind shoemaker! La 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 la!
They sang together. They did not stop until the work was all done, and then they ran away quickly. The next morning, the wife said,
"The little elves have made us rich, so we really must show them that we are grateful for their help. I will make some clothes for the elves, and you can make some shoes for them to wear."
So she stitched little shirts, coats, vests, and trousers, and knitted 2 little pairs of socks. The shoemaker made 2 pairs of tiny shoes. That evening, they laid it all on the table and hid in the corner to watch.
It will be so much fun to watch them tonight. I hope they like the clothes,
said the kind wife. At midnight, the elves came in, ready to get to work. They danced with delight upon seeing the clothes. They put them on, and the shoes too. They danced and skipped and leaped over chairs and benches. At last, they danced out the door. From that time on, they never came back. The shoemaker then worked as before and was blessed and prospered every day.
The Golden Goose. Once there was a man who had 3 sons. The youngest was thought to be very silly. The other sons often mocked and made fun of him. One day, the oldest son wanted to go and cut down a tree in the woods. His mother gave him some small cakes and water so that he would not be hungry or thirsty. When he came into the woods, he met a little old man who said,
"Good morning. Can you give me a little to eat or drink? I am very hungry and thirsty."
But the clever son replied,
"If I do, I will have none for myself, so be off with you."
He left the old man standing there and walked on. He began cutting down a tree, but very soon his axe slipped and cut his arm. He had to go home to have it bound up. The next day, the second son went into the woods to cut down a tree. His mother gave him some small cakes and water. When he came to the woods, he met the same little old man.
"Please, can you give me a piece of cake and a drop of water?"
he begged. The second son answered rudely,
"What I give to you, I lose for myself. Be off with you."
He left the old man standing there and walked on. Just like his brother, he began cutting down a tree, and soon his axe cut his leg. He had to limp home and have it bound up. Then the youngest son said to his father, "Please, let me go into the woods to cut down a tree." But his father said,
"No, your brothers have both been hurt. You know nothing about woodcutting. You'd better not try."
The boy begged so much that his parents finally agreed for him to go. The next morning, his mother gave him a cake and some water. When he came to the woods, the same little old man met him.
"Good morning."
The little old man said,
"Please, give me a piece of your cake and a drop of water. I am very hungry and thirsty."
"I have only a cake and a small bottle of water, but you are welcome to share it with me," said the boy. So they sat down, and when the boy opened his basket, The little cake had grown into a very big and delicious one, and the water had turned into wine. After they had eaten enough, the little old man said,
"Because you have been kind-hearted and shared your lunch with me, I will give you a goose that will lay a golden egg every day."
The boy said, "Oh, thank you." He took the golden goose home. His parents and 2 brothers were so surprised when he told them about meeting the hungry old man and what had happened. His father said,
"I'm so proud of you. Your 2 older brothers need to learn how to be kind to other people."
The 2 brothers promised that from then on, they would try to be better men like their younger brother.